Welcome back. This weekend on A Closer Look, we're talking about books, of course, Sullivan County Imagination Library and Imagination Library as a whole. Thanks for joining us. So talk to me about, we mentioned briefly, why Sullivan County, or why the Imagination Library was founded. Of course, Miss Dolly Parton, the name behind that, and there's a bit of a personal meaning behind it to her.
That's exactly right. The Imagination Library, the inspiration behind it was because of Dolly's father, who couldn't read or write. So she decided to start this program in her home county of Sevier County, Tennessee. And it was just to enrich their lives, provide a better education, and get them ready for kindergarten. Other communities started finding out about it, so we expanded from there and went statewide in Tennessee and then expanded internationally. But the books themselves, we have a panel of early childhood experts that meet every year. We have a team in the U.S. that's a joint team with U.S. and Canada, and then I go over and meet with our United Kingdom team in London each year to review our current library, review new titles, and then we also have some developmental milestones that we use as guides, and then some age-appropriate guidelines that we use for them to select the books.
So you're really wanting to make sure that the books that get into these children's and families' hands are what they need, not just a shelf filler or a piece of literature to read, but really a beneficial book on top of that. And I know you mentioned that you have a daughter, correct?
I have a daughter,
that
yes.
went through the program.
And when I was approached to come onto the board, my wife, who's a teacher, and I had some experience with the books already. We were probably a year or more into the program. And her observation was that the quality of the books was just exceptional, and she loved the books from an educator's standpoint because she's in early education. They're just fantastic in their quality. They have a variety of authors, from new to more established authors, and some of the best children's authors contribute to this library.
And that's one question I kind of asked you in the commercial break was, who are some of these authors? Are they nationally, internationally known? Are they sometimes more local? And the selection committee, like you mentioned, there's a process, but a good mix of both, right?
That's exactly right. And we have some brand new authors coming up, a book called The Rotten Tomato, and Kim Cooley is the author on that. And she's brand new to the program. This is her first book. Then we also have authors like Anna Dudney, who has multiple books in the Llama Llama series that most kids will know about. And we're glad to have her on board. I receive letters from all the countries that these authors reside in. Every time Dolly sends a letter out announcing that they're part of the program, we always receive a lot of feedback saying how much they love to be a part of this, and they're totally behind it.
And now the library does include some of your mainstays, like we mentioned before the break, with The Little Engine That Could. Everyone knows that story. I mentioned The Corduroy, which is one of my favorite. And so there's some of the mainstays that even parents can recognize and relate to on some levels, and of course new ones. And there's new titles every year and old titles each year too, to make a very strong library.
That's exactly right. They review our current library, the new titles that we have, to see if a book is stronger than maybe the older title that we have, and then they'll switch it out. After all of that process goes down, it's quite involved. We're all locked in a room.
A group of people have to read 100 and some
That's
kids'
right.
books.
Every book is read aloud by adults, so it gets very interesting. But when we get down to the end, we have a really good selection of books with some alternates. And then I go in and negotiate pricing with our publisher to make sure that we can mail the book. All the books in the United States and Canada are custom printed just for the program. So because of that, we're able to customize some of the things in them. And for instance, adding some book-specific reading tips in the softcover books so that parents can have some guidelines and some assistance in how to read the book, how to hold the book, what questions to ask while they're reading or after the story.
Right, because you really also, a large part of that is you want to get engaged reading and involved reading. So it's not just a parent reciting the book to their child, but really get them involved, and that's where those suggested questions can come in handy. Get their little minds thinking about what the moral of the story really is. Because kids' books, they got to have a moral of the story.
Right.
And it sparks their imagination. It's
true.
not very long after you begin reading with them that they begin reading the books to you. And of course, at that age, at 2 and 3, they can't obviously read the book, but they're telling stories out of their imagination that have been sparked by the authors. And that's just a fascinating time to listen to.
I know. Well, my mother loves to tell the story of one of my favorite books growing up was something like "I Love You to the Moon and Back" with the rabbit, and she used to laugh because I would be 2 and 3 years old. Obviously, I can't read, but I would sit down and read the book to her after so long and flip the pages. But I had it memorized. I loved it so much. I had it memorized, and I could tell that back to her. And it's another facet of the mind that we're able to reach into through this program at such a young age. For a child to be able to begin to memorize things and understand things to that level, and the imagination is just incredible. You have to have that to get through the world nowadays.
That's exactly right. We have postal carriers that tell us the kids are waiting at the mailbox each that time of the month when the book normally arrives, waiting for the book to come in. So it's a sense of ownership for them because their name is actually on the book, and it's their book, and it's just a wonderful thing. It's more than just a book program. There's so many things that happen because of this relationship with their parent or guardian, reading this book and things that are developing. And at that age, a child's brain is developing rapidly. 85% of a child's brain is developed by the time they're 3. So having these type of interactions early on is really important and continuing it on through their life.
And real quickly before we go to break, could you tell that your daughter was maybe more prepared for kindergarten since she went through the program?
We actually were listening to her on sight words before kindergarten to understand exactly what she knew before she hit that door. And she had an immense vocabulary that just surprised us.
So definitely much, more prepared for kindergarten to continue that education to a top level. We're going to keep talking about the Imagination Library when we come back. Stay with us.